How long does it take to actually see an improvement in your art? 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, and I'm not just talking about drawing clothes or hair slightly better. I'm talking about a significant, noticeable increase in skill where you can really tell that you're getting better here. And while I don't have the exact answer to that, honestly, I don't think anyone does, I wanted to see if I can determine how much I can actually improve over 1 single month of consistent drawing. But before that, let's talk about VTubers. Wait. Stick with me here. We're getting somewhere with this. I like VTubers. They're cute, they're funny,
You're like a little sister to me. What?
Themselves, and they all have really good designs. And this is crucial for me who wants to bang out a decent number of varying pieces over the course of 1 month. So in short, they're the perfect test subjects. So the goal is to draw as many VTubers as I can over the course of 1 month to see how much I can improve. So how many did I make? Cue the drum roll. 10. The number's 10. Just 10. Not as many as I thought it would be. I mean, honestly, I was aiming for like 15 to 20, but 10 isn't too bad either. That's about a piece every 3 days, but who cares? Let's get back on track and talk about how much I can improve in 10 artworks, starting with piece 1. So starting off, we have Shy Lily, this orca cat thing. I thought she was just an orca, but Google's telling me she was an orcat. I didn't know those existed. Not the worst start in the world. I think I did quite a few things right here, but there's also quite a few very noticeable misses, so let's get right into them. The first and quite obvious issue is the composition. Honestly, I had no idea exactly what I wanted to make with this, other than I wanted it to be simple, as this is only the first piece, and that led to me making, while not the worst pose in the world, something that was quite boring composition wise. Other than that, another thing that could use a bit of fixing is the proportions on the face, as the eyes and nose seem a bit too high, and the hand could use a bit more rendering work, and the background could have used a different color to not contrast as much. But even with all that, it isn't all bad, as I do think my rendering skills do save the day a bit, with the hair, skin, and this portion of the clothes all looking quite good. So this is one hit and miss piece at the same time, which is honestly perfect for the first piece because it clearly shows what I need to improve on. However, when wanting to improve, you can't just split your focus and your resources onto too many different things at once. While it would be nice to fix all of these issues in one go, I wanted to focus on what I believe to be the most important things, that being the composition and then the face. So let's see how I tackled one of those in piece 2. As you can see for this one, I wanted to do something quite different. Now this VTuber is Annie, most known for being the illustrator behind Neuro, so I thought, illustrator, creator, a god? Gods, Greek gods. Oh, I got something. Now, I think we can all agree that this is leagues more interesting than the piece before it in terms of composition. So in that aspect, mission accomplished. However, I still think there's something off about that face, but one thing at a time, I guess. Other than that, this is my time to really focus on my cloth rendering, as if I wasn't quite good at that already, but I've never done a piece that's just pretty much all loose cloth like this. So I try to represent the forms under the cloth and introduce colors, as it might get quite gray and dull. And to both of those points, I do think I succeeded to some degree. However, let's notice some places that can be clearly improved, first being this point where the hand supposedly grabs the cloth, as I think the forms under could have been shown way better, considering how I did that quite well with the other hand, as well as the hair being quite difficult to manage, as it was a harsh light on top of a graining in the hair, though the glow from the start does help distract from that. Overall, quite a good piece. Some places can be improved, but I think I improved in one of the main ways, which was composition. So let's move on to piece 3, Iron Mouse. I haven't checked on Iron Mouse for a long while, so I didn't know what to expect in terms of what model I wanted to draw. But man, that most recent model looks so good. I don't know, something just clicked in me the second I saw it, and I was like, I want to do this one. This one's good. I want this to look so cool. That was the only thing that was on my mind while I was making this. I didn't want this to be an elaborate piece or anything like that. I just wanted it to be simply cool. And I think I achieved just that. If not with the pink background, then most definitely with the black one. At a first glance, this one just simply hits the mark in a way the other two didn't. And I think the main difference between what makes a simple composition like this good and a simple composition like this not so good, pretty good but not quite there yet, is the intent behind them. I had one clear goal the entire time while making this, and I couldn't say the same for the other pieces. However, nothing's perfect, and the more you look at it, the more inconsistencies you start to notice. So starting off, the face is much better, but it's covered halfway, so I don't think that counts. But the anatomy of the body is kind of off. Like, the chest is too far forward. I should probably shrink it in the middle a little bit, and I think that'll probably fix it. And to top that off, the hair is a bit too clumped in places, the jacket is too far out, and why is this part of the hair like this? Actually, hold up. much better. So yeah, that just shows how much a clear intention and good composition can mask clear mistakes, as I'm pretty sure not many of you noticed all of that wrong with it at a first glance. But let's not dwell with it for too long and look at piece 4, Made Crony.
Can I get an espresso? What's an espresso? You mean an espresso? Because we don't serve either.
I'm so cooked. Okay, so here we are, Maid Crony. Honestly, I have the feeling she doesn't want to be in that maid costume. I don't know about you guys. So the theme here is she just hates everything, and we're just peasants that she's forced to work for. Now, if you zoom in a bit, I think I nailed the spite and hatred in her eyes quite nicely. Taking a look at the piece as a whole, I do like the approach that I used with the reflected ground and the white space. Really gives her a presence, but I do think that the bottom part of this looks a bit too unfinished. Probably should have just cropped that part out, to be honest. And I think overall here, the biggest issue is the consistency in the rendering. Now, if you look here, everything is fine and dandy. Even if you look at the face and the hair, it's all quite well done. But then when we move towards the middle, things start to get a bit muddy and the lighting isn't as sharp as I would like it to be. Lines start to stand out in places where I honestly should just cover them up, and it ends up making the piece look like it's a bit too rushed. So overall, quite a good piece in most aspects, but I should have spent an extra hour or two just to render and get rid of things that make it look unfinished. Not much else to say, just a good but not completely done piece. And on piece 5, I think we have some of the same issues. So this piece is of Yuzu, which before I thought looked quite good, especially in the face, but oh my god, this new model is so complicated. This is going to be simplified to the extreme if I wanted to get it done in any decent amount of time. But other than that, what popped into my mind was sort of like a majestic feeling, like she's bigger than life or something like that. And this is what I came up with. Now overall, I think I got the idea right, and even more than that, I think I got the composition, face, simplification. I think I got all of those things right in those pieces, albeit with a few things that could have been rendered more in the chest area. But the one thing that I missed just so happened to be the one thing that honestly kind of makes and breaks the composition, which is the effects. The moths / butterflies flying all around her just aren't good enough, especially looking at how well I rendered that bottom part of her. So that brings up another key issue that I need to work on, my effect variety, or just, well, the quality of the effects that I already know how to do. But that's for another month, so let's move on to piece 6. This marks the halfway point of me working hard to figure out what I'm good at and what I need to work on. And with all of that work so far, we're back where we were in the first piece. Now, I chose Michi because I think her clothing design is one of the best that I've seen. I don't know what it is, the shirt held together by stitching, it just does something for me. But once I started, I realized there wasn't really so much that I could do with that, and then I ended up without much of a purpose. However, for this video, I think in hindsight, this is perfect, because this shows how well I've technically improved over the course of half a month. And I will say, this isn't that bad. I can definitely see a mindset shift when it comes to my composition in just this short amount of time, opting to use more props like those eyes compared to the more zoomed in shot. And I think that the head, while not perfect, is a bit improved from the weeks prior. So overall, better than where we started at a 10. Still a lot of issues, but I don't want to take too long. So this next piece is where it all changed. And to be honest, this is probably my favorite out of all 10 that I made. So let's talk about piece 7. So if you guys haven't noticed, for the past 6 artworks, I haven't drawn a single, say, complex background. Sure, there's a few props here and there that were used, but nothing that I would classify as a full background. So for this piece, I wanted to change that. But not only that, I also wanted to change, well, everything. The whole process of sketch, line, base color, render was starting to get a little stale for me, so I wanted to try something different, say more experimental. So here we are with my illustration of Mori Calliope, and I think this piece is clearly the most done right out of everything that I've made so far. I did not expect it to turn out this good, but let's get into some of the specifics. The composition with the flowing petals make everything look so much more interesting, and I think this is one of the first times where I've actually done it right to a good degree. Along with the symbolism with the scythe and the skull at the top, even when Mori isn't in her usual costume, you can tell she's a Grim Reaper with a bit of a twist, as she's also holding a microphone. And to top it all off, my use of hard and soft edges has improved massively, and that's made what are supposed to be seemingly boring angles interesting, and interesting angles even better. So what can we improve? First, the hand holding the mic could be rendered a bit more, and the petals could be spread out and color coded to make things a bit more three-dimensional. But honestly speaking, I think this is pretty much as close as I've gone to a piece with no big issues. But we're not finished yet, so let's check out piece 8. This is even more experimental than the last piece, but I think I went a little too far out of my usual comfort zone to the point where some of the issues got a bit too glaring. So this is of Ina, and I always like the idea of her being kind of like this Cthulhu god thing that shouldn't be messed with. You can kind of see a pattern in the things I like to draw. So her standing in an abandoned city looking down at you just seemed right, but it was the execution that was a bit on the lacking side. So I used the same approach that I did with the previous piece, but I quickly realized something like that only works if you're really familiar with what you're making already. And as I draw mostly people and never really draw buildings, you can clearly see the quality difference between the two, even though I'm pretty sure I spent an equal amount of time on both. So honestly, not much to say other than tone back a bit on scope, you know, maybe draw one building before I decide to draw like a whole abandoned city theme thing. Again, like I said before, don't try to do too much that you don't know all at once. Overall though, I will say if I take away the background, she does look quite good. Piece 9. So I took my own advice in the previous piece and went back to what I'm used to, half bodies. But I wanted to add some elements to make things interesting. So here we have Gigi.
Vote goes vintage.
And she has giant fists. So what else do you do with giant fists other than smash things? And here we are. Honestly, one of the most balanced pieces that I've made so far. Other than adding some more rendering on the further edges of the piece, there isn't much wrong with this, which is rare considering how much I was messing up earlier. So at this point, I'm really starting to feel a bit of the improvement. You know, I'm starting to feel a little good about myself. I'm not completely sure in what I'm improving on other than composition. That one's pretty clear, but it does feel like I'm getting consistently better in the quality of my work. So yeah, piece 10. The last piece. This comes right after me watching Suise's new music video, and man, that just blew me away. Like, they all blow me away, but this one was really good. So I felt kind of obligated to do something to commemorate it, and I ended up mesmerized by this one scene where she's on stage performing. Seriously, go watch it. It's so good. But I just wanted to match the explosiveness of this moment in particular. And speaking of explosiveness, who better to use for this reference other than Mika Picasso and Yonayama Mai? These two match the exact feel that I want for this superstar on stage, bursting with confidence and thrill perfectly. And so I cooked. Compared to the style study I did about 7 months ago, I actually wanted to mix some of my own style of painter-like character rendering with the pop elements that Mika Picasso uses with her insane cel-shaded art. Coupled with color choices sourced from some of Yonayama Mai's works, I think this was executed quite well. Now, in terms of improvement, I do think that the ratios of colors here are not exactly where I want them to be, as I feel they do clash a bit too much with the colors of Suise in the middle here. I think I just need to rearrange them a little bit, as well as working on some rendering of the clothes. But hey, come on, cut me some slack. These stripes were not that easy to do. But I think that it's quite evident that the improvement from the beginning of the month to now is quite substantial. Now, I do want to preface that for the last 3 pieces, I did take an extra 2 to 3 hours to make each one, as the average time to complete the works 1 through 7 was about 5 to 6 hours, and the average time for pieces 8, 9, and 10 were 7 to 8 hours. As well as the first piece obviously not being one of my best works, but I still just kind of wanted to measure where I was from the beginning of the month to the last of the month, not really comparing, you know, my best masterpiece ever to what I could achieve at the end of that month. But time aside, looking at the first and last 2 pieces side by side, there are a few things that I think I've improved on. First being the face. Outside of just drawing for these pieces, I've also been practicing faces in my sketchbook every few days, and I think that improvement is showing. But even more than that, the biggest difference here and what I've been talking about this entire video is my composition. As time went on, I got increasingly bolder step by step by step by too much step by back a step, and here we are. I hope this gives you guys kind of like an insight on what I think about between pieces, you know, how I break down what I make and try to, you know, narrow down what I focus on. So moral of the story, draw a lot, don't do drugs, and sub. By the way, love all you guys that interact with my posts. Y'all are the real ones. That's where you can see pretty much all of this art before I make any videos on them. But that's it. I should go. I got other things to worry about.